Hello, my name is Jenna, and let's look at some of the teaching methods that I like to use. So, I enjoy designing my classes around my students 100%. So each class is very different. Each study plan is so different depending on the students' individual goals and needs. So, some ways that I like to work with students, especially if they're at the beginner level, is to use a program called Touchstone. Touchstone is used by Cambridge, and it's a way of learning English in a practical way where from the very first class you are speaking the language. At the same time, you're learning grammar but in a natural way. Before I even actually teach the grammar, you use it before. And then it's a kind of a natural way of forming the language. And the way we got to think about this is, as you're a child learning your native tongue, nobody tells you how the grammar works. Nobody tells you how to construct the sentence with a subject and a verb and a participle and all of these things. You just start speaking naturally, and the reason you do that is from listening. So the way I enjoy teaching my classes are 100% English, even if the student is at the beginning level. And by doing that, the student reaches their goals so much faster and quicker. So if you're a beginner student, even an intermediate student, I like to use this program called Touchstone. We work through 4 books. Usually you can get through those books anywhere between 4 to 6 months, as long as you're taking at least 1 class a week. And it's a really great way to get speaking at a pretty high level at a pretty quick pace. So I like to get my students speaking as quickly as possible and able to reach their goals. Now let's look at my more advanced students. The way that I like to work with my intermediate to advanced students, to even super advanced students, is pure conversation classes, but with a clear focus. So how I like to set up these classes are that we will choose a topic. Sometimes I choose it, sometimes the student chooses it, depends on their goal. And we really focus on that topic and going profoundly so that the student can achieve more vocabulary and also a higher level of speaking in more formal settings, educational settings maybe, professional settings. It depends really on the goal of the student. Sometimes the student just wants to be a great conversationalist. So based on that, we'll design that conversation class for that student with that student. Some students, pure conversation for about an hour, which is great. Practice is the best way to achieve that native level sound when learning any language. Some students prefer a little more structure, so they prefer that we have grammar taught at the beginning and then conversation where we would practice that grammar in a real life setting or style. Also, some students prefer to learn idioms and expressions from my culture particularly, which is the United States culture, so we'll focus on those idioms and expressions that can be used inside the United States, and even some of those expressions can be used in Canada, England, Australia, and other speaking countries. It just depends on the cultural touch that a student would like to achieve. Some of my students are living abroad, so they really want to get in touch with their native friends from those countries, and the best way to do that is to be able to speak at their level. And so we focus on that, and it's just been a really beautiful process. Now on the other hand, I have some students who would like to develop professionally, and by doing that, we focus on interview skills, we focus on presenting skills, especially in job presentations, business presentations, we focus on business traveling, and by doing that, I've actually had great success with my students where they are achieving job interviews, they're acquiring these jobs overseas, and they're very, 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 very excited about this new change in their life, moving from their culture, their comfort zone, into a new culture and into an area where they're not comfortable, but they're ready to go out into the world because they feel prepared. Also looking at teachers from other countries, English teachers that are not native speakers, living in other countries, especially in areas where it's very difficult to have access to a native speaker. These teachers come and they are asking for advice about grammar tips, about correct pronunciation, about idioms and expressions, and I've been able to help them develop those areas by pure conversation and talking with them and giving them real life examples where they can practice and then give that knowledge to their students. So those are my teaching methods. Those are some ways that I like to work with my students, some success stories, and I hope to teach you soon. Bye, have fun.